Okay. Please, can you share your screen?
Okay, just a second. So could you confirm if you're able to see my presentation in slideshow mode?
I welcome Mrs. Julia Muriru to this session, and Mrs. Julia Muriru is a cloud advocate at Microsoft. Please, Mrs. Julia Muriru, you can begin your session now.
All right. Thanks so much, Yusuf. Thanks for the invitation to join the session today. Um, so before I begin, just to mention that in case at any point you're not able to either hear me or see my presentation, kindly, Yusuf, do you mind just coming off mute and letting me know, just in case that happens throughout the session. Then again, if you have any questions at any point, feel free to interrupt me and we'll get started with the questions. So, again, thanks for inviting me to the session today, and I'm very excited to talk to you about Microsoft Power Platform. So, we'll basically just do an introduction. And before that, let me just introduce myself. As you've heard, I'm Julian Miruri, and I work here at Microsoft as an academic cloud advocate. So basically, what that means in simple terms is that I'm in this unique position between Microsoft and the academic audience. So, in case we have any offers, any tools, any services that might benefit the academic audience, that is both students and educators, it's my job to ensure that we actually onboard educators and students to these tools and services that they can leverage in their classroom. So that's basically what I focus on. And then our team focuses on developer tools, low no code, and fusion development, but all that in the context of an education setup. This is how you can find me online: Julia Mwiruri4 on Twitter and Julia Mwiruri on LinkedIn. Happy to connect and have any discussions that you may need us to have. So, for today's session, basically, we're just going to do a high level overview, an introduction to Power Platform. We are going to look at the 5 components of Power Platform. And then I'm also going to talk briefly about how do you get started with this technology. And if time permits, we may just briefly look at one of the demos. And so before that, I'd like to first play a video from industries that are already using the Power Platform. Before we even get into what the Power Platform is, I would like each of you to actually just try and, take note of the benefits that will be mentioned in this video. So on the chat, feel free to just drop the benefits of using Power Platform from what these presenters are going to share. So Yusuf, I think you'll need to confirm for me if you're able to get the audio from the video. So just confirm that as soon as I start playing the video. Is it audible? Yusuf, could you hear the video, the audio and the video? I'm not sure you're able to hear this. Video, are you still on the stream? All right, so I don't have access to the chat, so I'm not quite sure if you're able to get the audio from the video. Okay, so I think I'll just proceed with the assumption that you can hear the video. Great. So I really hope you are able to hear. Okay, so the video is not audible. So just a second. So let me just reshare. All right, so could you confirm?
Typically, when we try to build an application,
So is it now audible? So Yusuf, yeah, just confirm if you can now hear it.
we start from scratch, we come up with the visual design and
Is it okay now? Okay, thank
When
you.
we discovered the power platform.
So let me just sorry about that. Okay.
typically, when we try to build an application, we start from scratch, we come up with the visual design and the wireframe, and it's a long process. We didn't have any of those luxuries when the COVID hit. The key differentiator on why we chose Power Platform is how easy and quick it is to develop solutions. Powerups, Power Automate, and Dataverse come together and integrate very seamlessly, and that was the reason why we chose Power Platform for the PPT solution.
Yeah, so from that video, just try and take note of the advantages or the benefits of using Power Platform, and then the same case for this next short clip.
When we discovered the power platform, it was a game changer for us because now our team of just 2 people were able to make responsive changes and add new features as the need surfaced. We needed a technology solution that protected students' information, but also allowed our team to apply an assessment and scores in an equitable way that allowed us to get to the heart of what we're looking for in our next generation of scholars.
My favorite app is the book recording app because it helps me to give my own rating and tell what I dislike and like about it. My favorite app would be the allergies app. I have recently made this app for my friend with peanut allergies. So I decided to help her out and create an app to find out what brands she could eat from and what brands she could.
Yep, so I guess that's it. Now on the chat, I'm hoping that you are able to just share briefly, some of the benefits of using Power Platform, and then we'll get back to what you'll have shared on the chat towards the end of the presentation. So now what I'm going to do is that I'm going to introduce you to the different components of Power Platform for you to now have an in-depth understanding of how these systems are actually being created. And for this last video, I really like it because it clearly shows how you can use the Power Platform to create a complex solution, and how you can use the same platform you just saw some 10-year-old girls create solutions on the Power Platform just to solve their immediate problems. So I really love that fact about how flexible and easy to use it is to get started with the Power Platform. So as I mentioned before, the Power Platform has 5 different components. So when you hear someone talking about the Power Platform, that is basically Microsoft's low-code development environment. So this supports the creation of fully functioning systems without having a heavy investment in traditional code. So instead of actually delivering a service, a working system in 6 months after writing code, you can actually deliver the same system, probably less functionality, but have a working system in a matter of weeks using the Power Platform. So we have 5 components. The first one being Powerups. So Powerups basically allows you to create fully functioning applications. Those are mobile apps or tablet apps. And this is all done in a matter of minutes, literally, where you actually have drag and drop components that allow you to place the different controls on multiple screens in your app. So when I'm talking about Power Platform, I like to have in mind the individuals who may not have the opportunity to, sorry, I like to have in mind the individuals who may not really have the opportunity to study computer science or any IT related courses, but they also want to learn and build technological solutions. So with them, we actually enable them to use drag and drop components to build these solutions. So a common question we get is on the Power Platform, which programming language do we then use? And with that, we actually use the PowerFX language. And so if you've ever used Microsoft Excel before, and I assume that majority of us on the call have already used or been exposed to Microsoft Excel, then you would be surprised by the similarity that we have with the functions that you're so used to writing on Excel, since we implement the same on Powerups. So for example, on this first screenshot, you can see that if you want to have the cell in green actually concat the content that you have in cell C2, that is what I have in red, and actually just add what we have in cell D2, that is what I have in purple, then for you to achieve that, you simply just select the cell. And then on this top bar, you'll see we have an FX language where you type in the formula to help you achieve this. So you're going to tell Excel that I want you to take the content that is in cell C2, and I want you to simply concatenate that with what I have in cell D2. And with that, you're able to get your final, full name on Excel. So if you now look at this second screenshot, which is actually a Power Up, you'd find that we have the similar layout where we have an FX label here, where you simply just add formulas that help you achieve almost a similar result you had in Excel. So in this case, instead of using cells, we are using controls. So you'd find that we have 3 controls, and we have one that we want this last control to hold the first name from this first control and the second name from the second control. And to do that, basically what you do is that on the formula bar, you just tell Powerups that I want you to use the control, the text property. So you can see we are calling the text property from the first control, which is called input result 1. And then I want you to do a similar operation to concat that with what I have in the second control, that is input result 2. So it's as easy as that. So if you've been using Excel for some time, then you're already familiar with, the language that you'd be using to create and execute the logic in your Powerups. So that's basically it about the first component of Power Platform. As I said, there were 5. So the first one is Powerups, to allow you to create applications using drag and drop interfaces. So if you want to add multiple screens, you just do that. If you want to add like a button, you just drag a button and position it on your screen. It's as easy as that. So let's look at the next component. Now the next component is what we call Power Automate. Now with Power Automate, when you hear this word, what comes to your mind is actually automation. We are talking about think of any repetitive tasks that you have or any manual and often tedious tasks that you may actually be having. And then how nice would it be to have a system that you can automate these processes and allow you to focus on something else, on something that is of higher priority. So that is what Power Automate looks to achieve, where with Power Automate, you're able to configure workflows that can run either at scheduled time. So you can say that every day at 6 a.m., I want a certain event to happen. You can just configure that and it will run automatically every day at 6 a.m. Or in some cases, you may need to get some notifications. So probably if someone mentions me in an email conversation, I want to get a notification on my Teams. So you can think of all the simple, and often time consuming tasks that happen and think of a way to automate that. Now with Power Automate, we can have from a range of the easiest tasks being automated and to complex tasks. So for example, what you have on the screen is actually a flow. And what this flow does is that it actually, based on a prompt that I give it, so I'll just give this flow a prompt, and it's going to search through Twitter. So it's going to actually just call Twitter, and if time permits, we'll look at this. We'll look at this flow in depth, and then it's going to just look for tweets around the prompt I've given it, and it's going to summarize the discussion around that prompt. And in this case, you'd find that I was asking, I think my question was, what's trending about Microsoft, right? And so you'd find that it actually went on Twitter and then it just summarized the top, the top tweets, and then it sent me this very nicely formatted report in my Microsoft Teams. So that's how efficient Power Automate is. So whenever you hear Power Automate, it's really just about the automating of tedious and manual processes. So something else to note about Power Automate is that it is not just limited to the Power Platform. So think of a scenario where you have data sitting outside Microsoft Power Platform. So the good thing with Power Platform is that you can actually use what we call connectors. So connectors allow you to connect to external data services and actually have them talk to the Power Platform. So in this case, you can see that on the slide, we have over 900 available connectors that simply just allow you to speak to other external services. So if your data source is somewhere away from our platform, it doesn't even necessarily need to be sitting on Azure. You can easily access your data or this external service using what we call connectors. So that's something else to note about the Power Platform. Then we are now 2 components down. We have the third one, which is Power BI. It's likely that you've heard about Power BI before. So Power BI is basically business intelligence. We're talking about extracting meaningful insights from data. So what does it mean if you have access to a lot of data? So if you can't really interpret what that data tells you, if you can't make decisions based on that data, then that data is really useless, right? So with Power BI, this allows you to actually create interactive visualizations from a huge amount of data. So if you have a lot of data, again, it doesn't matter the data source. We have very many options with regard to how you can connect your data. So a common scenario is using Excel as where you store your data. You can easily bring in your Excel data and have Power BI in a matter of seconds create visualizations that are not only just there to give you like a graph view or a chart view of your data, but you can also interact with your data just to understand trends and patterns, as you can see on what we have on the screen. So that's something that is pretty cool. I particularly love this component because I think this is what sets apart businesses. So you might find that we have 2 businesses working on the same scope, but one is far ahead of the other. And it's simply because they're able to get data and extract meaningful, insights and actually make business decisions based on what the data tells them. Now, Now, something to note about Power BI is that we have three main services within Power BI. We have the Power BI desktop that is absolutely free, which you can leverage. And if you are on a Windows machine, you can actually install Power BI from the Windows Store and you use it completely for free to create your visualizations. And then we also have the Power BI service that is basically accessing the same tool but via the internet. So in this case, you would be loading this on the browser. If you're looking to collaborate, build reports and dashboards, and have your colleagues collaborate on this report, then Power BI service is the best component to go for. And then finally, we have Power BI mobile, where you can easily access your reports and your dashboards on your mobile phone. So that's something to notice about Power BI. And then something else that is pretty cool about Power BI is that we have what we call the Power Query Editor. So what is this? Think of a scenario where you have raw data and you want to create visualizations and reports from this data. More often you would need to clean up your data. You would need to, if you have inconsistencies in your data, you would just need to clean up and, take out any inconsistencies from your data. So you can do this using the Power Query Editor that you have access to as soon as you install Power BI Desktop. You can be able to load this on a separate window. And you can see that in this case, for example, we have data and we have a postal code column that it was an optional, I can assume it was an optional field, and you'd find that some users provided the postal code but others didn't. So if you load this data as it is on a Power BI visualization, the data wouldn't really be pleasing to whoever will be consuming that report or that dashboard. So you would really need to take some time on the query editor just to transform your data. And then something that is also cool is you can see at the very top here, you have access to AI insights. So if you want to use like text analytics or custom vision or even Azure machine learning, there is a way you can also integrate and have AI come in to provide extra insights from the data that you have. So to access these AI insights, you would need a premium version of Power BI, but there's pretty much that you can also do with just the free version of the service. Then finally on Power BI, if you've heard about Azure Synapse Analytics, which is basically just an advanced analytics service that allows you to connect to multiple and often, huge data, big data, you're able to also connect your Power BI workspace and be able to quickly create visualizations based on this data that you have. So you can see that with Azure Synapse, you're able to connect to external data services for your end-to-end analytic solutions. So for example, we have the Azure Synapse link, we have Microsoft Power BI, which allows you to quickly just power up interactive visualizations from your Azure Synapse Studio. So I thought that's something worth mentioning with regard to how far you can go, with analyzing and just trying to understand the insights from your data. Then on component number 4, we have the Power Virtual Agents, which basically is what allows you to create powerful chatbots in a very, in a very easy way. So I say that because you don't really have to have years of experience, creating of engineering experience, but you're actually able to power up chatbots in a matter of minutes. And I believe we can just also cover more in the demo, where you'd find that in a matter of minutes, you're able to create a chatbot that will have that real-time interaction with your users. So think of a website where you don't really need to sit behind your computer to answer the often asked questions every time someone asks a question, but you can easily, create a bot that will in real time have these conversations with your users even without your intervention. So that's a really, really cool component of Power Virtual Agents. And then finally, we have the Power Pages. So Power Pages is like the most recent component that was introduced within the Power Platform suite. And with Power Pages, this simply allows you to create external facing websites for your users. So if you want to not only just work with your local, or your company data, you also want to have external users go through your company data, you can easily power up a website that is customer facing. Again, you can see from the screenshot, this is as easy as using drag and drop components to create a fully functioning website. So I think that's also something that is pretty cool. Currently, we have a few templates that you can use to basically just quickly get started with creating these customer facing websites. And something else to notice about Power Pages is that it has the capabilities to extend the experience using pro developer tools. So, if, for example, you are a pro developer, that is a traditional developer, and you love working with tools like VS Code, you can actually, fine tune the layouts of these sites, not only using the drag and drop components, but by also extending using traditional code, that is, JavaScript, HTML, CSS. And you can do all that by clicking a button on the Power Pages site that will allow you to edit the code on VS Code. And it's basically just going to power up VS Code on the browser for you to write the code and just extend or fine tune your website. So that's also something worth mentioning, that it's pretty cool in a matter in a perspective that it allows you to also use the developer tools that you use on a daily basis to interact with this technology. So those are the 5 components of Power Platform. So just to recap, for Power Platform, 5 components, each with the different responsibilities. And the first one being Powerups allows you to build applications. Power Automate allows you to just create workflows and automate some of the often repetitive tasks. We have Power BI just to visualize and analyze the data that you have. We have Power Virtual Agents, that is a service that allows you to create bots. And finally, we have Power Pages that allows you to build customer-facing websites. Now, something that I'd like to also mention is that they say that all these components are powerful alone. So if you use Powerups, there's definitely a lot that you can do with it. But at the end of the day, they still work better together. So they are powerful alone, but they're still better together. So what does this mean? These days, you can actually integrate a Power Virtual Agent inside a Power App, or you can use a Power App as a visual inside a Power BI report. So there's that seamless integration between these different components that can really enrich the kind of systems that you create. And then something that I would also want to mention is that today everyone talking about AI, I'd also like to acknowledge that we have a lot of AI tools that have been introduced within the Power Platform suite. The first one being AI Builder, which basically just allows you to add intelligence into your applications. And the advantage is that you don't have to have years of machine learning backgrounds for you to actually consume AI models in your systems. So with AI Builder, we have like a 5-step process where you basically choose from the already pre-built AI models that exist on the platform. You can choose an AI model that you want to implement in your solution. You can then connect to your data, and then you can tailor it to meet the exact needs of your solution. Then just train the model, and you're doing this all on a beginner friendly UI where it's just a matter of clicking buttons, not really writing code. And then finally, you just get to implement and use these models within your solutions. So I think that's something that is also pretty cool to mention. And then, in as much as we have a lot of pre-built models that you can leverage, we also have an option for you to add and create your custom models. So if you have your custom models, you can also integrate that in the using AI Builder and actually have them implemented throughout your Power Platform solutions. And then something that is worth noting is that over the last couple of years, a lot of AI has been introduced into this low code space where you can see it. This all started back in 2019, where we had the introduction of AI Builder. That is just what we've talked about, being able to leverage powerful AI models within your low code solutions. And then in 2021, we had the announcement of Powerups actually being able to create Power Effects formulas for you straight up from natural language. So you would describe what you want, and the Power Platform would actually create a formula for you. So you don't have to cram all these formulas. How do I do this? How do I do that? You're actually able to just, in natural language, describe the formula you'd like, the logic you'd like to implement, and a formula will be created for you. And the same thing was introduced to Power BI using the data analysis expressions, that is DAX. And you'd find that you easily interact with your data using natural language. So again, that is something that really excited, the local developers. And then last year, 2022, we had the announcement of natural language support in your flows. So in this case, we have a feature that is called Describe It to Design It on Power Automate that simply allows you to describe a flow that you would want to be created, and then Power Automate will just create that flow for you. So it really saves you a lot of time, and sometimes you don't really have to cram, all the formulas that you need to put, all the steps that you need to provide in your flow, but you can simply describe it in natural language, and Power Automate would easily pick that up. And then last year, again, we had a quite interesting announcement where you can now create a Power App directly from an image or from a Figma design. So if you're huge on designing, I know a lot of designers who basically have their applications designed on a tool like Figma. And last year's announcement was that it was now enabled for you to just borrow the designs you have from Figma and create an application based on those designs, or even a simple image of an app that you want to be created. So I think these are some of the pretty cool features that were released up to last year. Then this year, 6th of this March of this month, we actually had the first announcement around Power Virtual Agents, where we had the introduction of the conversation boosters. And what this does is that you can easily create a bot that queries data from your website. So you can create a site and then create a bot that can actually answer questions based on the data that is available on your website. So that's like pretty cool. I would recommend testing it out. And then for AI Builder, this month, we actually had the Azure OpenAI model templates being provided within AI Builder. So you can easily access the OpenAI models directly from AI Builder. Again, this is something that is worth checking out. And the most recent announcements have been the Copilot within Power Platform. So in this case, you can easily co-create a solution using Copilot, where in natural language, you just describe a bot that you want to be created, and Copilot will just go and do the heavy lifting for you. Then that has been enabled on both Power Virtual Agents as well as Power Apps. And then finally, we have the enhancement of the natural language to flow. So that's just an enhancement of what was there last year, where you can basically just use Copilot to create a flow on your behalf. So I think these are really some of the announcements that are quite interesting that have been made recently. So a question you may have is, how do I get started with Power Platform? Where do I go if I need to access this platform? And what I would actually share is the M365 developer program. So this is how you actually get a free account. So you'd get an email in this format. So it will be your username, then you'll be given a domain and the extension .onmicrosoft.com. So you can just type and look for M365 developer program. That would actually take you to a site where you can create a free dev account. And with this account, you'd actually get up to 25 licenses that you can use to add users to collaborate on your Power Platform environment, then you can actually find sample data in case you want to play around with either of the components we've talked about. It actually has sample data that you can use to mimic the real world experience of businesses that are using Power Platform on a day-to-day basis. And then you also get access to tools like Power BI or even Azure Active Directory for you to manage and actually bring in users in your own environment. So if you haven't already, I would recommend getting the M365 developer program free tenant, and that will really allow you to create solutions on the Power Platform all for free. You don't need to pay anything. And yeah, I believe that's it. Let me just check if we have any questions so far. I know we are 6 minutes over time, but Yusuf, I'd like to see if we have any questions.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Julia Moore, for this your session. It is a great one. I think we are going to accommodate just two questions because of the time. Please, if anyone should have a question, you can put it in the comment section. We are going to attend to that.
Okay.
Okay. Since we don't have any question now, we are going to round up the session. Thank you very much, Mrs. Julia Muir, for honoring our invitation. Thank you very much.
Okay. No, no problem. Happy to be here. And again, in case of any questions, you can always reach out anytime, and happy to support.
Okay, thank you.